Are you tired of less than professional service when you go to conduct business at a public office? Stay tuned as we share with you what is being done to improve this in the public sector and what ancient stones have to say about the Guyana-Venezuela border issue. This is Guyana 411. It could be said that the standard of customer service in Guyana is distressingly low. Some service providers simply have no perception of what good customer service is, whilst many others do not care. And so the issue of improved customer service has remained a constant in national discussions over the years, particularly as people have become more aware of their rights.
Interfacing with service providers is defined by mannerism and disposition that range from arrogance and aloofness to downright tastelessness and rudeness. It is believed that the worst offenders can be found in the public service sector. This is especially worrying as these institutions are charged with providing some of the most critical services that the public need to access.
We've had for years this the accusation of poor customer service generally in this country, but I do think that I have personally seen improvements in many businesses and many agencies, and I believe there's room for a lot more improvement, because if you look at the rest of the world and where they're heading, sometimes they can overwhelm you with the quality of their customer service, because I think they understand the importance of customers. If you're a business and you rely on a certain clientele, or you have a mass-based customer base for your profits, then I think it behoves you to show those people a certain level of respect.
So what is being done to effectively address the problem of poor customer service? President David Granger, shortly after assuming office, spoke of the need for a professional public service.
It is my view that the public service is the engine of the executive. It is essential to have an efficiency of public service if we are to have services such as education, housing, law and order, infrastructure, roads to drive on. I don't believe that these can be possible without an efficient public service. It is essential also to create the environment in which our citizens could enjoy what I call a good life. Most people want to get married and have a family. Most people want to be happy. Most people want to live in safety. And it is we, the public servants, who create that environment in our day-to-day work.
Numerous training courses have targeted employees of state institutions in an attempt to raise the standard of service being offered to the public. Yet the problem of poor service persists. What exactly is the plan of the new government to ensure better customer service at state institutions?
The present training division in the Public Service Ministry will be upgraded and converted into a public service staff college, where people will learn public administration and they will understand how the public service is meant to operate in the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. So people will not enter and people will not be promoted unless they qualify to enter the public service, and unless they possess that degree of expert knowledge which we require of our new public service. In this regard, you can then consider advancing people to higher ranks within the public service, within the administrative system, based on their experience and their expertise.
In instances where training occurs, as a means for better service delivery, the general problems seem to persist. This is based on the feedback from the public. The question then is, are customer service training programs being tailored to fit the needs of the persons who are being trained? Some ministers have started looking at tailored training in keeping with their sector's demand.
Going forward in our plans is to ensure that our ministry, each department, our staff, that they are retrained. We're looking at training. It's very high on our agenda, like so many other things. But in terms of our manpower, we're looking at training for all aspects of our employee. The corpsmen, we've already begun to work on lateness. The reports that we get from the public, it's more negative than positive, and that is not what our ministry will be about.
There are various factors which can lead to poor customer service.
I'm not ashamed to say that sometimes I'm disgusted with the way my nurses would treat patients, and that can be remedied. But it's not all the nurses who treat them that way. You can have 100 who are excellent, and the 101 who's making the derogatory remarks and so on will cast that whole shadow over them. But the whole thing that we need is workers' satisfaction, job satisfaction, work ethics. I come to work when I was a physician, I used to go to work at 7 o'clock. I'm the minister now, I'm going to work at 6:45, and that's what you need. You need, the people in the ministry are saying to me, oh, we work until 6, 7. That might be true, but they also need to be compensated. They also you can't have the nurses working overtime and then you're taxing the overtime and they have to wait 3 months before they can get the overtime and so on.
A country's character is often defined by the type of customer service which it is able to deliver both to its citizens and to those who are visiting. The issue of customer service, especially the need for its improvement, is ingrained within the fabric of Guyana. It is also an issue that the government has demonstrated its willingness to address.
The crime situation has come in for special attention at the highest levels of government. One of the concerns is the high number of young persons involved in criminal activities. It is believed that if young people are exposed to positive values, they are more likely to stay away from crime. This is one of the many approaches the Guyana Police Force is taking to address crime. As the Guyana Police Force moves to regain the public's trust and confidence, the law enforcement agency has launched outreach programs in several depressed areas. Although the force has had a long history of reaching out to various communities, this latest initiative, conceptualized by Police Commissioner Celia Alposad, is being spearheaded by A Division Commander Clifton Hicken. This program began in Alboystown after a spate of violent gun robberies occurred in the community just over a year ago.
We had in excess of 10 to 12 gun robberies coming out within a 24-hour, and that wasn't good for policing. So what we did an analysis in terms of the community needs. And we recognize too that the faith-based organization, this both from the Heavy Life for Gospel and the Islamic, they were doing some feeding programs and trying to harness the youths to have them reform positively. So what we did, we built on what they had. We had a collaboration with them. We decided on a structure, and then we launched the Impact Harvesting program. Within the first 2 weeks, we told the members of the community that we were going to change the posture of the whole activities in the community that is prevailing by giving the youth a chance to identify and emulate the right role models.
The need for role models and socially acceptable leadership was a void that needed to be filled within the community.
What was prevailing in our Alboystown is young people involved in drugs and robberies and the rest of it, and that was exposed for the youths to see. So we did a couple of raids based on intel. We placed people before the criminal justice system, clean up the place, and then we started off with launching with the field-based organization. We incorporated this corporate sector into the whole mechanism, and then we did what is called a cleanup campaign.
The transformation saw requests being made by community leaders who called for a stronger police presence in the communities.
It began working. You find people from external Alboystown were prevented from going in and perpetrate acts of crime because our analysis tells us too that it's not members from Alboystown only perpetrating acts of crime in Alboystown, but they had people using their safe haven because the atmosphere was conducive for that type of behavior in the first place. So as we changed that, it moved from Alboystown and other villages started calling for the same posture. But then we don't have the human resources to establish the type of posture in all the villages. In any event, our deployment is based on our analysis and needs. So we look at the Grickler, well, that was a village to be looked at. It is strategically located and it was on the radar. So what we did, we went in and then we asked the community what exactly they needed. They told us they wanted recreation facilities for the youth, and we worked in collaboration with then Ministry of Sports. It's now under the Ministry of Education. We will continue to work in collaboration with the ministry is concerned. And we did just that. We developed the ground. We had a session with the Guyana Police Force and members of the public just to, collapse the barrier.
The program is designed to bridge the gap between the public and the Guyana Police Force. This is being achieved by interactions not only with the youths, but also with their parents.
When we're dealing with the youths, we understand what's going on at the level, and then we seek confirmation and permission from the parents. So we're dealing with them collectively.
The end result is a safer community with less tolerance of crime.
Any act of crime perpetrated in those areas, you see we're getting results. It may not be the day after, but within a short given period, you see we're getting results of high-profile robberies. We've had seizures of high-tech firearms and with minimal confrontation too. That is because of our stakeholders' partnership approach. And we intend to at least, that is part of the reform, the 5-year reform of the force. As Commander A Division, I intend to pursue that, and one of my objectives is to ensure that all the villages from, Conversation TTR Cabral, we equip ourselves with youth groups.
Recently, an exhibition was held at Grove on the east bank of Demerara. This showcased the efforts of youths from several communities who participated in the program. For Police Commissioner Silal Posad, it was a proud moment, and the past year has resulted in many lessons being learned.
There are a lot of lessons that we learn as we go, and we become better able to deliver these kinds of services that we do. But it's a wonderful experience, we engage the communities, it builds public trust exponentially. The children get the experience, and that, I think, is the biggest benefit. They get an experience that they will remember for the rest of their life. They went out in MASH last month and won the competition in the category that they competed. And that is something will be with them for the rest of their life. But the whole idea is to develop skills and teach them to think positive. And it builds self-esteem. They must understand that they can become anything they want to become, and to channel their energies in the right direction. So today is a very good example of what we started in those projects, starting from mobilizing people, and the community leaders were with us from the inception, and they remain with us in making this happen. And then the private sector entities came on board to provide material support as well as psychological support to these. We have had some of our private sector entities support from Albaistong throughout, and they're all signaling more and more support all the time, so it makes these things happen.
One of the stakeholders was Agricola resident Welton Clark.
I'm still optimistic and enthusiastic for the achievement we made in the year's time. Evidence of improvement is here today at the Youth Expo. It shows clearly how advanced they have been from the time they started. There is always room for improvement. And if we, the adults, like we're doing now, more adults should come on board, we can see the beginning of growth and betterment in each community, especially those that have been riddled with crime and other negative things. They are going to mature physically, inspirationally, and they can develop their career as long as we get this kind of support from the disciplined forces and many other donors. We will succeed. I will invite you to speak with me again next year, and I'll be jumping with joy.
For Clark, the new attitudes displayed a remarked change from what prevailed when the Police Impact program initially started.
When we started, there was a whole lot of indiscipline, their actual behavior, lack of respect for their peers, no direction, not knowing where they want to go, no plans or anything, even though at that time we had the experience and we were looking for better behavior. But knowing that they came from different backgrounds, without any real societal togetherness, it was hard for us, but yet it was easy. Because that task was for us to try and bring these kids, wean them away from bad behavior, criminality, and let them know that there is another avenue for betterment. Because whatever we choose to do, if we neglect those kids, we might be victims of their behavior. But if we focus on them, we can be the beneficiaries of their good behavior.
The program has since been expanded with Agricola, Tiger Bay, Grove, East Bank, Demerara, and Better for Acting Village on the east coast of Demerara getting on board. It has been making the desired impact thus far. The advent of corneal transplants locally is an advancement in modern medical technology that will bring much needed relief to those whose vision has been impaired.
The human eye is a vital organ to the body. It is the organ that provides a sense of sight, allowing one to see and interpret the shape, color, and dimension of objects in their environment through the processing of the light they reflect. Vision is the key element to one's daily life, as it allows individuals to easily conduct their activities which are necessary for living with very little if any dependence on others. The cornea is the transparent front part of the eye that covers the iris, pupil, and anterior chamber. The cornea, with the anterior chamber and lens, refracts light, with the cornea accounting for approximately 2/3 of the eye's total optical power. In humans, the refractive power of the cornea is approximately 43 diopters. While the cornea contributes most of the eye's focusing power, its focus is fixed.
Cornea. The sclera has a transparent circular segment that bulges out at the front to let the light in. This is the cornea, which bends the incoming light and directs it towards the center of the eye. The bulging shape of the cornea is the precise curve which flattens out at the edges to minimize aberrations that would otherwise distort the image. The cornea is appeared 0.5 millimeter in thickness, and it provides 2/3 of the focusing power of the eye and is a powerful refracting surface. The cornea is the most important layer in the refractive procedure, which in tandem with the lens forms a clear image on the back of the retina. It is extremely sensitive with more nerve endings in it than anywhere else in the body. The cornea is also a living tissue, and this eye will work properly. It has to have a continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients.
Corneal transplantation, also known as corneal grafting, is a surgical procedure where a damaged or diseased cornea is replaced by donated corneal tissue, which is referred to as the graft. Guyana has now moved to facilitate some level of corneal transplant surgeries locally, with the aid of a team of experts from the US-based Subraj Foundation. The team conducted 6 surgeries in 2014 and several others a few weeks ago. Government officials are currently reviewing the possibility of establishing a possible unit locally to perform this type of surgery. However, the challenge remains the need for an eye bank.
The overall objective is, of course, to help patients who need a corneal transplant in order to improve their vision, but also the long-term effect of having our doctors trained in that area. For a corneal transplant to be effective, we need, of course, the donor tissue. I don't think it's such a technical operation, because you use the 10 nylon suture, which is very, very thin, but any ophthalmic surgeon, those who do cataracts and pterygiums and so on, would be familiar with the use of that type of suture. But it's much more the obtaining of the donor tissue. In other words, the problem lies in harvesting the tissue here. I think there are legislation that we will hope to put in place and that we can probably get the legal draftsman to help us with this and get it on the order paper and take it to the National Assembly for it to be approved. That when that is realized, then we can certainly go ahead and do our own corneal transplant here with our own people, because it's much more instrumentation rather than material. Granted that what you need to develop is a corneal bank. And I once questioned one of the visiting faculty all that we need to create a corneal bank, and he said, we need a refrigerator. That is putting it simple. Of course, we will want to do all that is necessary in the best interest of the patient, of having healthy donor tissues, so that when we do our corneal grafts, we should be able to have good success. Corneal transplant is one of the most successive transplant of organs the world over.
Individuals who are in need of such surgeries are urged to contact Dr. Shailendra Sugrim at the Georgetown Public Hospital, where they may be able to benefit from free procedures upon the team's next visit, which is slated for September.
Once again, Venezuela has renewed its claim to the Essequibo region. This is an age-old claim that was settled centuries ago. In fact, archaeological evidence ought to have brought an end to this claim centuries ago, as we hear in this story.
Intermingled in every country's beauty, you would find a historical linkage. Buildings, landmarks, even vegetations and the name of some villages. Very often, there's a story behind each, making their significance even greater. Guyana, with its colonial roots having at varying times being a colony of the British, Dutch, or French empires, is filled with such stories, and these are reflected in monuments and historical sites across the land. Let us look at a very ancient structure, one that holds special significance to our bilateral relationship with neighboring Venezuela. In the early 17th century, the Dutch established on a small island approximately 1.5 acres in size at the confluence of the Essequibo, Mazaruni, and Cayuni rivers, Fort Caicoveral, and armed it with a few guns. This treasured piece, with a name that translates to Sea Overall, is perhaps the smallest Dutch fortification ever built in their overseas empire. In the 1650s, there was a rapid transformation of the riverbanks of Essequibo as plantations were established. In 1666, the island was captured by the English but later recaptured by the Dutch. Under the administration of Commander Hendrik Royal, the Fort Caicoveral became a beehive of activities and soon became too small for the increasing number of civil servants and other employees of the Dutch West Indies Company. In 1708, the fort was seized and plundered by 3 French ships, manned with approximately 3 privateers who plundered everything in sight and held the colony at ransom. In 1710, the French privateer captain and the Dutch commander reached an agreement for the return of the fort to the Dutch. According to the agreement, the Dutch would hand over to the French captain African slaves to the value of 50,000 Dutch guilders. In addition, another 300 guilders payable in meat and provision would be paid to the French. In 1716, the Dutch relocated. At this time, the fort had outlived its purpose but was still occupied by a few soldiers. In 1748, most of the building was demolished, and according to history, some of the bricks were used in the construction of a sugar mill. In 1841, the Venezuelan boundary dispute with British Guyana began when the Venezuelan government protested what they termed British trespassing on Venezuelan territory. In 1814, after entering in a treaty with the Netherlands, Great Britain controlled all three colonies, Berbice, Demerara, and Essequibo, which together formed the colony of British Guyana. Because the treaty did not define a western boundary, the British commissioned Robert Schomburgk, a surveyor and naturalist, to delineate that boundary. His 1835 survey resulted in what came to be known as the Schomburgk Line, a boundary that effectively claimed an additional 30,000 square miles for Guyana. In 1897, there were doubts as to whom the original builders of Kike Overall were. As such, samples of the brick from the ruins and the lowest parts, together with keystones of the archwork over the door, were collected. Archaeologist J.M. Bart, after reviewing the pictures and samples of the brick, said, quote, "The wall depicted on your photo is definitely not Spanish masonry. The Spanish brick used in the 17th century is flatter. The view of the color of the brick and its measurement as it relates to masonry from the Dutch period between 1650 to 1750. End of quote. Fun facts that you should know. Fort Kike Overall was established in the 17th century by the Dutch. In 1999, it was declared a national monument. In 1748, most of the building was demolished. And in 1897, during the Venezuelan-British Guyana boundary dispute, the fort was proven to be made by Dutch occupants who at that time resided in that area, that later became under the British rule and formed part of the territory of British Guyana.
Thank you for watching Guyana 411. Until next time, keep your chin up and your environment clean. Bye-bye now.